The acquisition and deployment of the V-22 Osprey by the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force represents one of the most contentious yet strategically pivotal decisions in modern Japanese military history. To the casual observer, the aircraft is frequently associated with safety concerns and high-profile accidents, earning it a polarizing reputation among the Japanese public and media. However, from a cold, strategic perspective, calculated within the defense ministries of Tokyo and its allies in the Indo-Pacific, the Osprey is not merely a transport aircraft. It is viewed as the only viable solution to a geographic nightmare that plagues Japanese defense planners: the tyranny of distance and the unforgiving speed of modern naval warfare in the East China Sea. For observers in Australia, who are well accustomed to the strategic challenges of vast maritime territories, Japan's gamble on the Osprey offers a critical case study in balancing operational risk against existential security threats. The central challenge driving this procurement is the vulnerability of the Nansei Islands, a chain stretching approximately 1,200 kilometers from the southern tip of Kyushu to near Taiwan. This archipelago includes the contested Senkaku Islands, which sit at the heart of rising tensions between Tokyo and Beijing. In a potential conflict scenario, the timeline of engagement is dictated not by the defender, but by the aggressor. Analysts estimate that a concerted effort by the People's Liberation Army Navy or its maritime militia to seize one of these remote islands could occur in a matter of hours, a strategy often referred to as a fait accompli. The objective of such a move would be to establish a defensive perimeter before Japan's central government could navigate its complex decision-making bureaucracy and dispatch forces. This creates a severe logistical deficit for Japan. The main bases for the Amphibious Rapid Deployment Brigade, the elite marine unit tasked with recapturing occupied territory, are located in Sasebo on the island of Kyushu. To move these troops to the southern extremity of the island chain by sea would require heavy transport vessels. While capable of carrying significant firepower and armored vehicles, these ships travel at speeds of roughly 20 to 25 knots. At that pace, the transit time from Sasebo to the Senkaku Islands exceeds 24 hours. In modern hybrid warfare, a 24-hour delay is catastrophic. It grants an adversary ample time to dig in, deploy surface-to-air missile batteries, and establish an anti-access and area denial bubble that would make a counterattack prohibitively costly in terms of blood and treasure. This is where the V-22 Osprey becomes indispensable to the Japanese defense calculus, overriding the domestic political cost of its safety record. As a tiltrotor aircraft, the Osprey combines the vertical takeoff and landing capabilities of a helicopter with the speed and range of a turboprop airplane. Cruising at speeds exceeding 500 kilometers per hour, the Osprey can bridge the gap between Kyushu and the remote southwestern islands in approximately 2 hours. This reduces the reaction time by a factor of 10 compared to naval transport. Furthermore, unlike the CH-47 Chinook heavy-lift helicopters, which act as the workhorse of the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force, the Osprey has the combat radius to reach these distant outposts without needing to stop for refueling or rely on vulnerable forward airstrips that might already be compromised or destroyed in the opening salvo of a conflict. The operational concept involving the Osprey is tightly integrated with the doctrine of the Amphibious Rapid Deployment Brigade. Modeled somewhat after the United States Marine Corps, this brigade is designed to conduct amphibious landings and air assaults to retake seized territory. In a crisis, the V-22 fleet would act as the tip of the spear. Their role is to transport the initial wave of infantry, mortars, and light anti-tank weaponry to key vantage points on or near the target island before the enemy can consolidate their position. This capability forces potential adversaries to recalculate their risk assessment. Knowing that Japan possesses the ability to put boots on the ground within hours rather than days denies the aggressor the assurance of a quick, uncontested victory. It transforms a low-risk land grab into a high-risk engagement with immediate resistance. Critics often point to the troubled developmental history of the Osprey and specific incidents such as the crash off Yakushima in late 2023, which resulted in the grounding of the US and Japanese fleets. While these concerns are valid regarding the mechanical complexity of the airframe, defense analysts argue that there is simply no alternative platform available on the global market that offers the same blend of speed and vertical envelopment capability. A standard helicopter is too slow and lacks the range for the vast stretches of the Pacific. A fixed-wing cargo plane requires a runway, which is exactly what will be targeted first in a kinetic engagement. Therefore, the Japanese Ministry of Defense has accepted the operational risks of the Osprey because the strategic risk of losing sovereignty over the southern islands is deemed far greater. Furthermore, the interoperability factor is significant for regional security partners, including Australia and the United States. The Royal Australian Navy and Australian Army frequently train alongside Japanese and American forces, with the U.S. Marine Rotational Force in Darwin also utilizing Ospreys, and Japan building its own fleet. A standardized logistics and maintenance network is emerging across the Indo-Pacific. This commonality allows for cross-decking operations, where a Japanese Osprey could theoretically land on an Australian amphibious assault ship or a U.S. carrier during joint exercises or humanitarian relief missions. This signals a unified front and a high level of integration that complicates the planning of any nation seeking to alter the status quo through force. The deployment of the Osprey also serves as a countermeasure to the massive quantitative advantage held by the People's Liberation Army Navy. Japan cannot hope to match China ship for ship in a naval building race. The disparity in industrial capacity and defense spending is too wide. Instead, Japan is pursuing an asymmetric strategy. By combining the rapid mobility of the Osprey with long-range anti-ship missiles stationed on mobile truck launchers, Japan aims to turn its archipelago into a defensive barrier. The Ospreys allow for the rapid movement of personnel and supplies between these dispersed missile batteries, creating a dynamic and unpredictable target for the enemy. This concept, often described as island-hopping defense, relies entirely on the speed of aerial transport to remain effective. Ultimately, the narrative surrounding the Japanese V-22 Osprey is a reflection of a hardening security environment in East Asia. The decision to persist with the program despite public backlash and technical setbacks indicates a shift in Tokyo's priorities from passive defense to active deterrence. It is a recognition that soft power and diplomatic protests are insufficient to guard against gray zone coercion tactics. For the Amphibious Rapid Deployment Brigade, the Osprey is not a luxury, but a lifeline. It represents the difference between arriving in time to defend a sovereign territory and arriving a day late to a besieged fortress. In the high-stakes chess game of the first island chain, Japan has determined that the ability to move pieces across the board at 500 kilometers per hour is a capability that it cannot afford to lose, regardless of the price or the controversy.